What's up, Fasters? Welcome to episode 5 of WTF What a Fahd. This is a podcast where we share career blueprints to help you navigate your own career. My name is Fahd and I'm the host for this podcast. Now, before we start, I do want to give a huge shout out to our incredible sponsor, TBC Create Homes, for lending us this space. So if you're looking to transform your living or workspace, whether it's a cozy apartment or bustling office, TBC Create Home is your go-to partner. Please look at the link below and check out their profile and their projects in their IG. And do let them know that you get reference from WTF and they're going to give you some discounts. Now, today I'm really excited to introduce to you a guest, a friend of mine who keeps the digital world safe from shadows. We have with us Amalina Abdul Nasir, a powerhouse in trust and safety policy. Now, Amalina isn't your average tech professional. She's a global issue policy manager at TikTok, a 100 Women in Tech honoree, an ASEAN Youth Fellow, and someone who's been recognized as a subject matter expert on some serious critical global issues. We're talking about someone who crafts the rules of engagement in the wild west of the internet, tackling everything from violent content to child safety. She's not just about her day job either. Amalina brings a master's degree in strategic studies to the table, showcasing a brilliant mind that combines academic rigor with real-world impact. So buckle up, because we're about to embark on a journey through a digital frontline with Amalina. Amalina, welcome to WTF.
Hi, Fahd. Thanks so much for having me here.
Yes, we know each other for quite some time, and this is going to be interesting to talk about your career. While it sounds impressive, and it is really impressive, it's also impressive that she actually started off as an Ustazah with a bachelor in sociology and corporate communication. Then you venture into counterterrorism research, and now you're shaping global policy at TikTok, one of the largest company in the world. So do you mind just walk us through from start of your career to where you are right now?
Yeah, I mean, of course. I think if you ask me, maybe if I was 15 or 16, do I imagine myself to be here? I would definitely say no. Okay, Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. I think, as you mentioned, right, the term Asatiza, growing up in the madrasah education system, at least those years, our own, say, aspirations or even dreams are largely shaped about either the conventional careers, you become doctor, engineer, policeman, or by and large in the Asatiza route, ultimately become an Ustazah. I would definitely give a lot of credit to my parents. I think they shape a lot of how we reimagine careers, we reimagine how madrasah students contribute and fit in the larger community. So one of the ways that I remember this thing my mom did ask, if all madrasah students graduate, become Asatiza, then who's going to be the Muslim doctor in our community? Who's going to carry that knowledge that you have in other fields? I think that stuck to me very much when I was 16. And I also started wondering, okay, yes, everyone can do that because they are in conventional education system. Ultimately, for me, it was very unconventional. And given the structure of the system, obviously, I'm always at a disadvantage. But alhamdulillah, I think what I carry with me is the deviating the notion, are also introducing an alternative to what a person or a madrasah graduate or people with religious background can also contribute in other fields. I think that's also something I see between me and my peers. Perhaps off their day job, they also do a lot of different preaching, but I think what we are doing, preaching day to day on our day jobs, is a bit different. And that's where I think one of my realization when I was actually in university, I was taking a module called the Sociology of Political Violence and Terrorism Research. And it actually connected me a lot with what I learned in Sharia law and Islamic theology back in school. And it fascinated me that I could understand the sociology aspect of the research aspect and also the counter-ideological aspect. That was actually one of the reasons that brought me to counterterrorism, because I feel that while everyone else can do, say, academic research, and this is something that my mentor also told me, that everyone can become an analyst, but nobody would be able to answer counter ideology or dovetail answering any question on counter ideology. And that actually happened right before my very eyes in the very first global counterterrorism conference that I actually spoke at. So after we presented, I was the only Muslim in the entire conference. And I was on a panel where the lead panelist was a renowned expert. And I was just like, I mean, just 23-year-old girl there just presenting her findings. And then one officer in the crowd actually stood up and asked, we know of this, what they use as the understanding of certain hadiths about ISIS, that perhaps women are enticed to become, say, jihadi brides. How true is it? And of course, no, everyone just looked at each other because they didn't really know like who can answer this. And then my lead panelist just naturally turned to me and be like, okay, I think there's a question for you, Amalina. But I'm like, that wasn't even the topic that I was talking about. So I thought that actually proved to my very eyes that there's actually a space for people with religious background in this area. And then fast forward today, what brought me actually into policy making is very much influenced by my experience in academia. I think being sociology trained, I want to be empowered to be able to shape community behavior, society behavior, and that drew me to policy making. And I think it's maybe not an area that a lot of people would consider because of how competitive it is, but coming to maybe 4 years now, I think I realized that actually you don't just represent maybe an asatiza or someone with a religious background, because ultimately in these spaces your education background doesn't really matter, but how you are represented. So say you're a woman, you're a Muslim woman, you're a hijabi, and I think that comes up a lot in policy making, being at the decision table where you carry so many minority cards. How do you then uphold, say, justice representation, not just Muslim, but also when you deal with hateful ideologies, when people have certain biases, and ultimately everyone has. Although we are supposed to suspend our biases when we craft policy or when we do our discussions, but that manifests a lot, and you need to be at the decision-making table so that you are able to champion or you're able to call out certain biases and make sure that certain lines are upheld, certain rights are upheld, and that allows you to also shape and make sure that certain information are not being gatekept to the global audience. So I think ultimately in this role, not just in terms of the representation, leaning on not just religious background, but understanding geopolitics, but I think an extension to that will be the linguistic capabilities. So ultimately in madrasah, although most of us won't be naturally fluent in Arabic, there are also definitely instances where people come up to me, being in policy will be the last line to approve, or maybe certain banning of accounts, banning of audios, etc. And ultimately, to no fault of them, they would come with all these sort of like, say, content or audio that, because of their biases and how their worldviews are shaped, maybe an Arabic sounding audio clip is something that sort of like frightens them, even if it's just someone reciting the Quran in a very dramatic manner. To them it's like, like we should ban this audio. But because of your linguistic capabilities, you're able to deep dive and you're like, no, this person is just reading and reciting the Quran. Oh no, this person is just glorifying God. Like there's nothing hateful or violative that we should be banning the account. And I think that's also very important, so that it puts you it creates that impact that you are able to also create in that space. So I think larger than just being maybe asatiza, is also the kind of like skills that you get as a madrasah graduate, being in these spaces within corporate sector.
Oh, nice. And I'm gonna be honest as well. I'm one of those people who thought that if you go to the madrasah route, like go to asatiza, is gonna be ustad or ustazah. That's all. There's no other place for you. So I think this is really interesting, right? Because when I first met you and I know that you're an asatiza and you're in this space, I was like, wow, how did you manage to go into this space? And I think that is really helpful for a lot of our students who are in that madrasah world, to see that, hey, there's a whole opportunity, a big opportunity for you in the corporate sector as well. That you can help to shape policies as well. Now, I do wanna ask you in terms of you being a hijabi, being an ustazah, going into this line, this corporate this corporate world, are there some challenges, especially in the way like because you are shaping policies, right? Do you face some challenges where they think that hey, whatever that you're doing is very biased because it's very like towards Muslims only. So was there any instance that you faced it and how actually you overcome that?
I think alhamdulillah so far at least within the policy space, the biases are not that apparent. But I would definitely say that maybe it's also because of certain types of crisis. It gives you that pressure because of, say, some geopolitics. Let's just put it out there, it's the Israel-Palestine war. Sometimes ultimately when you want to defend certain position, you also want to make sure that you're objective. And sometimes it becomes, I'm not sure if it's like self-imposed pressure, but also you feel that you carry this responsibility because it weighs down so many people that a lot of people will tap out. And that actually makes your level of responsibility even more pronounced. So I think that level of needing to be objective in a lot of say the assessment I do, or certain policy positions that I push, or certain policy positions that I wish to hold, I make sure that I make 10 times sure that I'm very objective and nothing emotional. So of course in certain instances where I feel macam I am very emotional with the situation, given the kind of like content sometimes that we have to look and review, I would definitely have to take a step back. I wouldn't deny certainly, given, say, for example, that type of crisis, it's something that you don't take a break, because even outside of work, people talk about it and you feel that you can't really delineate, and it becomes very emotionally draining. And then you have to show up with work and make sure that you're at your level best and make sure that you are able to not be biased in your positions. So certainly on those instances, yes, but I think sometimes we see more of the dynamic of, maybe for a lack of a better word, people in the West versus Asians, their perception of Asians. I think the most funniest thing I've gotten was I'm in a global team, so obviously there are teams from the West, the Irish, etc. And one very funny remark I've received before is that me and my Chinese colleague, they actually mixed up between me and her. And then for us, we are so perplexed because how can you ever get it wrong, because I'm wearing hijab and she's clearly not. And
I was about to ask, is she wearing hijab?
Exactly. So she was like, how can you not distinguish between the two of us? And to me, it's just that is just another level of privilege of blindness I don't want to touch. But it was, that was me. I'm also like, I'm sure that's just like ridiculous lah. But I think those kind of, when you are at that level, I think you are seeing more of these stereotypes coming up. But I think maybe take a step back also beyond just trust and safety, maybe in the community at large. I think one of the obstacles, not necessarily obstacles, but I think the mindset that people also have is that because you come from a madrasah education background and an Ustazah, people can't fathom that your work has impact. I think people always think that, oh, you're a content moderator, you sit there, you review content. And I'll be like, of course I would defend, because not many people are able to break into policy. And I'm like, no, like I don't do that. I mean, I do more than that. And the thing is, it's not just because I come from madrasah, but you should know that people like us within Malay Muslim community are able to do more. And I think until now I feel so flabbergasted, and they'll be like, oh, I have a TikTok account and it's banned. I'm like, okay, that's not my problem.
I received that as well.
So sometimes it's like, oh, people work in all the different tech companies, they must be doing very like maybe non-aspirational roles, which I think we really need to relook that. I think it's borderline problematic, I think, if you were encouraging the younger generation especially to allow them to maybe aspire bigger things in terms of career, or reshaping what successful career look like. I think that also is something that I'm constantly trying to also push out that message lah.
Okay.
And that's something that's a constant battle
Yeah.
within the religious fraternity. They think you work there, you just review content. I'm like, no, I can do more. You know, I can do policies. Yeah, so that's actually one of the areas that I find challenging. Also largely because of the company that I work, people just think I create content, which is not the case. People think, oh, it must be fun doing your job. I wish. I mean, of course, it's fun in a different way. It's a more intellectual fun. But people think it's more like fun, like nothing much. And I think, and that's where I think having representation in this different kind of like roles and departments are very important lah, to share more light and knowledge. Yeah.
Okay. The reason why I'm laughing so much because I received that as well.
Is it?
To the point like, because I'm under security, so you're like, so you're just a security officer there, and to a point I was like, yes, I'm just a security officer because I'm trying to explain to them I do crisis management, and they were like, what crisis are you talking about?
Exactly.
So anyway, so that's what it just reminded me, and I was laughing. I do want to check with you. So you're in TikTok. Is TikTok your first job outside of your academic world?
This is my second job outside of academia. So I spent about 3.5 years in academia, and then I was briefly in Meta, and then this will be my second job outside of academia.
Okay.
Yes.
So reason why I'm asking that is because I do want you to share with our listeners on how do you go into this industry? Like what certs do you have? Do you need degree, or I mean, for someone who wants to follow your path, wants to help shape or protect the internet world, right? Shape policy. Like how do you do that?
Okay. I think at least up to this day, based on my observation and also interactions with a lot of colleagues, one of the common denominator I did find and notice, or at least observe, is that to be in policy, I think you minimally need a master's degree, or you might have had policy making experience or public policy making experience, or any level of policy making experience in other fields. At the point where the trust and safety team within the company is shaping up the policy team, a lot of them came from the public sector, because ultimately I think they have the closest work experience, professional experience to policy. So I think that was quite an advantage to them. But beyond that, I think most of us who come either more or less already have a master's degree, or that number of work experience that's within mostly public sector. Other than that, I think certifications, I can't really say much for policy, only because I think the kind of skill set that's required in terms of analytical skills, putting certain frameworks, writing policies, it's almost like you are almost like legally trained, but more in terms of how do you draw a harm spectrum? How do you rationalize harm? How do you want to write that? What kind of policy? What are policy position papers? Those are, I would advocate for masters only because I think it provides you with the training. Other than that, I don't think so. Because even when I was reflecting in terms of, if you ask me, do I use anything back, knowledge base from my masters? I hardly think so. I think not many people actually use that. But it's more of the training, the rigor that you get. That's something that you actually bring over to the work. I would say mostly that otherwise, I think it would be quite competitive to break into policy, at least based on my observation. Yeah.
Okay. All right. It's good to know. Now, you are involved in a lot of networking communities. Like you're, if I'm not wrong, vice president for Mendaki Club, correct?
Yes.
You're even in Mara as well. So talk to us, like use this platform to share with the communities that you are involved in, and maybe you wanna get listeners to join those communities?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. Nice that you also mentioned. So, I'm the vice president of Mendaki Club. We are not under Mendaki, but we are affiliated to Yayasan Mendaki. So we can call that as the parent organization. And the main crux of Mendaki Club is that we are by youth for youth. We create a lot of programs that not only empower but also build communities within the youth. So specifically, the program called Mara is something that I chair. Under Mara, there are 4 different programs that we run, specifically looking at undergraduates or those within the tertiary space. So we have the Mara Conversations, career conversations, where we bring in diverse professionals from different backgrounds to share the journey on how they pivot from university to the career world. I think we are seeing a trend where more students are very much in the exploratory stage within university, the pressure of landing a job, what the different soft skills or at least the different trends that we're seeing in the different markets. I think we want to avail that platform so that undergraduates get that knowledge, get that download, understand what they need to stay ahead of the curve. The second one is the Mara Convention. That's our flagship annual career convention where we bring not just speakers but more importantly harnessing at the heart of Mendaki Club, which is the social capital. So we bring in professionals working in different industries, and then the idea is to also give that as a test platform or a platform for undergraduates to be able to also put their networking skills to the test and be more exposed to a lot more people who work in different industry or industry that they aspire to be in. I think ultimately they also need to be aware that there are so many different career pathways in an industry, and I think it's very important to at least have that exposure. I think it's something that while growing up we didn't have it.
Correct.
And so a lot of the volunteers, including myself, are trying to avail the platform that we didn't have. The third program that we have is called the Mara Mentoring Program. It's a bespoke program for 6 months long. It's for a cohort of 30 undergraduates. And we also select them to create the cohort, and then they will be paired up with mentors in a tribe system. So there's 2 mentors to 3 mentees. They'll be stick together for 6 months, and then we have a graduation. We are at our 6th season, if I remember correctly. Last but not least is something that I just launched last year, which is called the Mara Leaders Table. I think the idea is, very similar to, we spoke about it. I've been testing the idea with so many different professionals, and I think it's just based on my own observation. I think a lot of us young professionals, mid-senior professionals, we come to give back time. I think the larger question is, if our larger aspiration is to build a community of success, who is supporting these professionals to climb up? And I saw that as a big gap, and I think I do want people who come to Mendaki Club or to come to Mara to give back time to also benefit from it. So the idea is to create that space where we have frank and honest conversations about careers. I think a lot of us we turn to our peers, but we also must acknowledge there are certain cuts within us that we also need to be strategic with it. So say, for example, horizontal, vertical progression, working overseas, salary negotiation, what does it mean to break into senior leadership, but also ultimately create that network and bridge between early, mid, and also senior professionals. I think the larger vision is to see more of us in senior leadership and just creating that supportive platform to ultimately materialize that. So that's all in all the 4 programs that we have. Certainly we have expanded the target audience from just tertiary students to also working professionals, and I think certainly welcome any of the Fahdstas who are tertiary students, madrasah graduates, poly graduates, or even professionals to obviously join us. We actually have our Mara Leaders Table sometime mid-November next month, so if you're free, hover to our social media channels and you'll find us there.
And what I'll do is I'll send a link below in this
that would be
podcast,
great.
so for our listeners to actually join. I've actually been to their event, and it is really, really good. And I was supposed to be part of the mentorship as well, but I just can't commit because I'm always flying. So I don't want to be being your mentor, but I'm not always there. So that's the reason why. But this is a really good platform, especially for our listeners. to go into a career, to understand your career path. So please check out the link below. I'm gonna tag it in both my IG and also my YouTube channel as well.
Okay, cool.
And with that, I'm gonna go into, for every of my listeners, there's always this contentious question that I'll ask them in terms of the compensation package. Now, I don't need you to give me an exact figure, but I think this is something good. Like you say, you have to take your masters. Masters is not cheap. So if you really want to go into that industry, you're investing so much in that. Like, what is the value that you can get out of it? Obviously, you're helping to shape the world to be a better place. That's for sure. But also, with everything so expensive right now, so people also want to know, like, in terms of the compensation package, like if they want to go into that industry, like what is that they need to think about, especially when doing negotiation and all of this. So do you mind just giving me a rough idea in terms
Rough figure. I can't remember top of mind, but I think minimally, at least on my level. And I think it also really very much depends on where you were at before or where you're coming from. Either you are coming, say, fresh out of school with at least some experience, or you are coming, say, from the public sector. Because I think ultimately your last job pay also plays a part, at least based on my observation then when I joined maybe 3 years ago. And that's where we see that a lot of us stand very differently in terms of our pays, our base salaries, because where we come from. So ultimately, I think for the very few of us who came from private already, I think we stand at the slightly higher end level of the scale. And so that also at least allows you to climb when you adjust your pay a bit more, I say, faster lah. But also ultimately depends on your merit in terms of performance bonuses. I think typically we can expect about 3, if not to 8 months of performance bonuses. But also I think caveat that at least for my organization, they did review the bonus structure. So I think they're investing or giving more stocks. That can be a good news or not good news to many people. Their way to retain talent. So that's definitely one aspect. But other perks I think that comes with it is beyond your the different kind of leaves that you get. I think at least just the nature of the company. Chinese New Year, you get something. Your sport bonuses you get. I think the good thing is it comes in cash bonuses. So at least you get that reward instantly. There are also different types of bonuses that you are able to get depending on how your leads would champion for your work. Apart from that, I think stocks, certainly. We are not public listed yet. However, I think depending on how you look at it, I think for the majority of them, we are quite happy, I guess, with what we have. Other than that, I think we also have flexible benefits, which I think is something that's quite common in a lot of tech companies. I wouldn't say ours is at the ranging high. I know there are other tech companies that give more, but I think for ours it's not that high because it's compensated by either, say, your stocks or base salary, etc. So all in all, I think in terms of medical coverage, obviously, like your dependent also has the option for you to enroll your dependent. What else? Medical coverage, dental coverage, hospitalization. I think the essentials that you need, certainly, including childcare, paternity, the rest. Yes.
All right. So in all, let's say if you can just give me an estimate, a range on the total compensation, what are we looking at if you're going into the policy, if you're at a manager level, right?
I think when I joined, it was already very close, if not more than 200,000, 200K. And then obviously I think it just ranges from there because of the different readjustments that you get. But if I'm not wrong, including, say, I mean, the level that you go in will also dictate how much stocks you will get as well, right?
Correct, yeah.
So ultimately, if I'm not wrong, at least to the best of my knowledge, that's where I was at. But certainly, just to disclaim that other folks coming from other sectors then gets structured quite differently. So I
Correct,
think that would also change their total compensation package.
Of course. So
Yeah.
at least our listeners will have an idea. I think for you to invest in masters, obviously it's very expensive, but you look at the reward that you get from there, because if you're saying that the compensation is about 200,000, I think there's really a lot for someone who wants to venture into a master, which you have to pay probably about 30K for masters.
Yeah, I think
Yeah.
it depends if you want to do local or overseas.
Yeah.
I mean, ultimately, not everyone. I mean, I don't advocate for people to straight away do their masters.
Mhm.
Certainly, I think have a sense of what you want to do. Policy is also a very niche space. I
Mhm.
think understanding why you want to do it, your motivation.
And that I agree.
Yeah.
Because if you want to go policy, you really have to have that motivation, the reason why you want to go into that, right?
Yes.
Because you want to help shape the community.
Yeah.
You need to have the proper, what do you call it? The niyat must be right for you to be able into
Yeah.
policy.
Yeah.
That's what I feel. Because if you're going there for the sake of just money, then the policies that you're gonna shape is not gonna help the world.
Yeah, I
at the
think
end
you
of the
need
day.
a lot of care when you're in
Yeah.
policy, especially I think when you touch on very sensitive topics.
Mhm.
I think you have to care in order for you to be like, okay,
Correct.
this is not something you want to allow our users to be exposed to. If not, you'll just be like, yeah, lor, like
You know,
just allow our
Yeah.
users to see. Yeah.
because I get the money already. Or okay, yeah, I approve this. You're not
Exactly.
really showing care and concern to help the world, to shape the world to a better place.
Yeah.
So that's good to know. I know we've talked for about half an hour. So before I let you go, because I'm always enjoying our conversation as always.
Yeah.
I do want you to just share some golden nuggets to our listeners before we end this podcast.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think just three things top of mind. I think I think a lot of people, at least if any of the listeners who come from a madrasah background, or I think a lot of youth, sometimes a lot of the questions I get is they feel like it's such a worldly job.
Mm-hmm.
Like they can't see God, they can't see Islam. Macam like, why? And I think there's a lot of need to also reframe how our youth see that. And I think actually seeing every single job is an ibadah is very important. I think we are very, very fixated that, oh, an ibadah is like when you do prayers 5 times a day and you do sadaqah, etc. But like, ultimately, your work is also a form of ibadah. Your form of work is also an act of worship, and that's fundamentally serving the very purpose of why we are in this world. Secondly is, I think, what was it? Oh yes, I think venturing into the corporate world, being exposed to different cultures, and I think certainly you can also attest to this. I think having very strong values and principles are very important. I think to keep you grounded as Muslims, I think certainly when you're exposed to different cultures or identities, you also start to question maybe, like, hey, maybe you look up to certain cultures and then it erodes maybe your own sense of self-worth, your own identity. And I think sometimes people can also start to be ashamed to become a Muslim. And I think having that anchored is very important, especially if you want to break into these spaces where ultimately we are still very much minority in most of the sectors, especially competitive industries like the tech space, which ultimately leads me to the last question, to the last point. Top of mind for me would be that there's no wrong in dreaming big. But I think one of the things that I also see scholars keep reminding is that you dream big, but you also bring Allah with you. And I think in any way that you aspire, you should also make sure that you remain true to yourself as Muslims in terms of, say, how responsible you are at work, how do you carry yourself, your conduct, because ultimately you are a reflection of Muslim, kan? Kalau you macam sloppy, the way you talk to people, macam people also can't you can't command respect.
Yeah.
Like, is that a representation of Muslim you want? And I think I'll always go back to the fact that the golden ages of Muslim then, like, we are at the apex of scholarship. And I think that's where we should represent, not things that misrepresent us, but also being at the top of our field, and that is also embodying ihsan, excelling in what we do. I think those are also things that are very important for us to also just stay grounded in the field, and also reframing or see and constantly reflect, how does this actually shape our relationship with God or with Allah. I think those would be the golden nuggets that I would definitely part ways with the Fadstas.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate you coming over to the show. I think the golden nuggets is really good. Something that I'll definitely carry with me as well. Like wherever you go, you have to bring Allah with you. And remember, your job is an amanah as well. So
Yeah.
sometimes when I think that's really good, because sometimes when I'm doing the stuff that I do, managing crisis, and sometimes you're not aligned with certain of the values, but you just have to do it because it's your job. But you just have to remember that sometimes it's an amanah as well. You're doing what's right for yourself, for your family. As long as it's not going against what the Muslim teaching, the Islam teaching is, I think, just keep on spearing ahead in doing your role, because again, like what you say, it's an amanah. So thank you so much for your time. I really enjoy having this conversation with you. To all of the listeners, thank you for listening, and I hope you enjoy this session. Till then, if you really like this episode, please remember to subscribe, like, and share it with your friends. Until next time, stay curious and stay inspired. Take care.